Hello, hi everyone, I'm back. I'm now here to present this table that we're going to talk in this section about can open data, open science, transparency, and collaboration be epidemic legacy, mapping slums experience around the world. And I have the great pleasure to have here with me Fernando from Rio de Janeiro, which is he's from Niterói, working on a project called URBE-LATAM, Equitative Resilience in Communities of Niterói in Medellín in Colombia. And he's from Informatica and Society Lab from COPPE, UFRJ, is Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And I also have here with us Nicera, Wanjiru Kimani. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. She's from Community Mappers from Kibera, Informal Settlements, Nairobi, Kenya. And it's a great pleasure to have you all here with us. This session is going to be also in English, but Fernando will make a mix and talk in Portuguese so everyone could understand too. And we are going to try to translate and have the questions. You can write the questions in Portuguese or in English, doesn't matter. We will translate for Nicera. We'll do the best that we can here. So this way everyone can participate. Okay? So to start with, I'm going to ask Nicera to present her slide. Okay, Nicera, you have your mic mute, so you can unmute it, and I'm going to mute mine. There we go.
Thank you, Patricia. My name is Nicera. I am from Kenya and a resident of Kibera Informal Settlement. And before I present my project, I'd like to say that the open data has created a pandemic. This pandemic, the coronavirus, has created a legacy in terms of availability of data. And now we've seen a wide availability of information for sharing, and people are now willing to talk about data, willing to talk about their communities. And we've seen now a state response in terms of data briefing and the audiovisual advertisement that we are seeing in our televisions. And again, I would say that in terms of now policy, we've seen government coming up with different measures to curb the coronavirus. We've seen cessation, we've seen the curfew, we've seen some countries that have now a total lockdown, although some countries are now opening up. And now going straight to my presentation, the community mappers decided to carry out a survey in Kibera. It was just a small survey, but we just wanted to look at what are the gaps in terms of fighting the coronavirus, the vulnerability, and now that the government is coming up with a lot of measures, were these measures being followed up in communities? So basically, we had thousands that we were targeting in Kibera, and we had a sample household. We had to sample like 538 households. And the methodology used in this survey was the random walk from geographical dispersed location, and we used the ODK, which we installed on our personal phones. And the questionnaire is very public on the ODK, and anyone can use that questionnaire. Next. So in terms of now respondents, so the age, we saw the youth, the young people were the biggest in terms of answering the question, simply because now we had people who are working, we had the young people who are working and they're not working, they're at home. In terms of sex, we had now the male, oh my God, the male gender. We had them answering. We had now we had them being the highest in terms of answering the question, the marital status. Oh, they partnered. In the communities, we call it partnered because we have, because when you are staying with the wife and the husband, and you're not married, you've just partnered. That is what I can say. The next slide. Next one. The situation. What was the situation? Bearing in mind it was during, we are now in a pandemic situation. Job losses was the highest at 68%. I tell you for sure, people have lost job because these people who are working in industries, these industries are shutting down. They are working in hotels. The hotels are shutting down. These people who are working at night. Now there is curfew. They cannot work at night anymore. So the job losses were at 68%, the highest we've ever had in our entire life. Let me say that. Then the household who are running out of food. Yes, now we don't have people. You have people who are not working. They cannot provide for their families. That was at 56%. And people who are now like the rate of crime. The rate of crime has increased simply because now people are not working. They cannot provide for their families. Therefore, some will just end up stealing so they can provide for their families. The rate of crime had increased up to 58%. And I'll say these are, when I talk about the rate of crime, I'm talking even about the killings. We had the femicide, whereby we have seen now the rate of femicide increasing. We've seen mob justice, police brutality, whereby they are killing more people than we've ever imagined in our entire life. People are dying people are dying now and then because of police brutality. Then the next slide. The next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. We had, and also let me say that we had people who are now missing food. Oh, thank you. So on food security, I'm there on the food security bit, whereby now we saw that we had some cases who are we had mild cases, we had moderate, whereby now you are getting food and now you're not getting, and we had severe cases. We had severe cases in these fossils, whereby we've seen that the Arindi was reading in terms of severe cases. And when I talk of severe cases, I mean we have families that were staying without food for a whole day or even 2 days, and maybe they had now to rely on their neighbors to feed for themselves. Then the next slide, please. Then on the impact of this survey, why were we conducting this survey? Is we wanted to see the vulnerability, because there were so many stories that were coming out. From the informal settlements. And when it comes to food distribution, when it comes to vulnerability, let me say that the government thinks that the vulnerability is people with disability. We have people with the orphans and the elderly. But again, let me say this. All people are vulnerable because this pandemic has created a situation whereby people cannot afford food to eat. People are losing their jobs. People are staying at home. And now we are becoming all vulnerable. And we found out that the young single mothers and upcoming mothers, they were at a greater risk when it comes to vulnerability, because when you give birth at this pandemic period, you are being told not to come out of your house with your baby because of the risk of being infected. And now you can imagine this scenario. You don't have anything to eat in the house. You don't have anyone to take care of yourself. So you are just there. You can't come out. You need food, and you don't have anyone to give you food. And the government does not regard you as vulnerable. So this is the group that we found out that they were most vulnerable when it comes to this pandemic, and they feared confirmation of most food insecure and vulnerable household. And now, after taking all this survey, what next? This is the question that we asked ourselves. Now it was the time to lobby for. It was time to lobby for our organization to give us food to take to these people. Because yes, we had seen these people, they are very vulnerable, and now they needed our help because we were taking data, but we didn't tell them we are going to take food to them. And we collaborated with Mama Kwa Mama, which gave food for 1 month for like 76 people from the team. And we are still continuing. And now we are now at a stage of documenting, because we collected data, yes. We gave some household some food, and now we are in a process of documenting, because we didn't want to be like any other organization who would come, collect data, and off they go. Because we are from the communities, from this community, and we live here, so we wanted like to have an impact, our data to have impact, although it was just a simple survey targeting few people. We just wanted to have an impact of this data. The next slide, please. Next. So this, you can see our team who are collecting this data, because we are in the middle of pandemic. I continue saying that they are well equipped. They have the mask, and the social distance is okay with them. And this is right in the informal settlement. This is in Kibera actually, and they are young people. Some are university students, but now they have said, okay, we have to collect this data to better our communities. Because I believe that if we collect data, if communities collect data and own it, we can transform our community in terms of policy development, and we can be able to lobby for services with this data. So thank you so much. If there's any question, I will be answering it.
Very much for your presentation. Yes, I already have some questions, but the people will have some too, and we can make this discussion later. I'm going to give the word to Fernando so he can make his presentation now. You're still mute. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I apologize, but I speak in Portuguese, ok? Vamos lá para a apresentação. Então, o tema aqui é bem dor e vem para a gente pensar qual vai ser que tipo de legado a gente vai ter em termos de dados abertos e ciências abertas na pandemia. Então, eu vou falar um pouco sobre o que a gente lá em Niterói, lá no Morro do Preventório, como a gente está entendendo que vai ser esse legado. Próximo slide, por favor. A primeira coisa é saber por que a gente foi começar a mapear o território do Preventório. O Morro do Preventório fica na cidade de Niterói, no estado do Rio de Janeiro. É uma comunidade que, segundo o último censo, tem 10 mil habitantes, mas, de acordo com os censos informais e as conversas informais das lideranças locais, pode ser que seja até do último censo para cá tenha crescido bastante a população do Preventório, quase 15 mil pessoas. É a maior favela que tem em Niterói. E por que surgiu esse projeto da gente mapear o Niterói, mapear o Morro do Preventório? Surgiu por causa do próximo slide. Então, a gente, junto com a Inglaterra e a Colômbia, a gente escreveu um projeto para tratar de questões de resiliência equitativa em cidades da América Latina. E uma cidade, porque eu sou de um laboratório de Informática e Sociedade, e o nosso laboratório já há alguns anos trabalha com a rede brasileira de bancos comunitários, e no Preventório tem um banco comunitário. Então, a gente escreveu um projeto que era para tratar basicamente de resiliência a desastres geológicos. Só que a gente deu uma contribuição, a gente aqui do Brasil, que o nosso laboratório trabalha basicamente com desenvolvimento de software de base comunitária, dialogando com as comunidades. Então, a gente um projeto que visava abordar as vulnerabilidades do território, só que a gente veio com a questão das potências de mapear e de desenvolver uma plataforma junto com a comunidade que pudesse mapear também as potências, o que tem de bom na comunidade. Então, foi por isso que não foi uma demanda, a princípio, não era uma demanda da comunidade mapear o território. Foi algo que é uma tensão que a gente tensão positiva que a gente vive nesses projetos, que como eles vêm formatados top-down, nesse caso mais top-down ainda, porque tem uma questão colonial, ele vem de um financiamento da Inglaterra para ser desenvolvido junto com uma universidade brasileira, e junto ainda em outro nível de proporção, de escala, com uma comunidade. Então, são esses níveis de pessoas, de públicos diferentes trabalhando, cada um com suas demandas bem diferentes. Então, a princípio, era um projetão acadêmico tradicional top-down. Gente com toda a boa intenção do mundo de tentar fazer ele o mais bottom-up possível, o mais dialógico possível. Próximo slide. Então, a gente ia seguir o normal do projeto, que eram fazer oficinas presenciais para a gente mapear o território usando o OpenStreetMaps, porque era ferramenta sugerida pela parte britânica do projeto. Então, nós íamos fazer essas oficinas e desenvolver, junto com a comunidade, um software, ou um pedaço de software, junto com o Preventório, que colocasse camadas no OpenStreetMaps que representasse as potências, as potencialidades daquela comunidade, e tentar criar um modelo de risco para isso, porque existe um modelo tradicional de risco matemático que os ingleses e os colombianos trabalham, e a gente ia tentar reinventar, a partir desse mapeamento, um modelo de risco que contasse também com as potências do local. Só que aí veio a pandemia, veio o isolamento social, e aí o projeto ficou muito mais interessante, porque aí, de fato, a gente entrou no nível máximo de diálogo, de dialogicidade com a comunidade, e veio a demanda top-down, de baixo para cima, veio a demanda deles, e a gente fez o papel que a gente estava querendo fazer, que era escutar bastante o que eles estavam demandando, e fazer o máximo possível para dar suporte para as demandas deles. E a demanda, basicamente, era passou uma semana do isolamento social no Brasil e as pessoas no preventório já estavam com de segurança alimentar. Ou seja, a galera que trabalhava em trabalho formal, fazendo bico, já não tinha mais trabalho e estava faltando comida em casa. Então, eles pediram ajuda para a gente montar uma vaquinha eletrônica e começar a captar recursos para a gente comprar cestas básicas. Então, a gente montou essa vaquinha, que foi muito interessante, e a gente fechou um ciclo que era coletar doações, captar doações, uma rede que também ficou fragilizada, que é parceira do Banco Comunitário, é parceira do nosso laboratório, que é a rede de agricultura familiar de Niterói, que trabalha muito em feiras. Como as feiras públicas foram fechadas, eles estavam com dificuldade de escoar a produção. Então, o que eles fizeram? A gente articulou montar as cestas básicas com os mercados locais, com os mercadinhos do preventório e com a agricultura familiar de Niterói. Então, a gente começou a fechar esse ciclo da vaquinha virtual. Então, e aí surgiu, de fato, uma necessidade prática, que aí eles quiseram começar a mapear o território, que foi utilizada uma metodologia das lideranças de seccionar o território do preventório por ruas, por parte alta, por alguns setores, para as lideranças pegarem a cesta básica e entregarem de forma segura, sem gerar aglomeração, sem gerar um ponto de coleta. Então, as lideranças mapeavam o local, entendiam aonde entregar, subdividiam, e aí eles usavam para tentar fazer a entrega da melhor forma possível, relembrar, conhecem o território, mas eles queriam relembrar de fato onde estavam a pessoa tal, fulano de tal, para ir lá entregar, que eles também sabiam, viam informações entre eles, por conversa, as pessoas que estavam mais necessitadas, então eles estavam usando o Google Maps normal. Então a gente começou a apresentar para eles o OpenStreetMaps, que a gente poderia colocar informações, mapear o território com eles próprios. Eles ficaram bastante interessados. Aí tem uma imagem que mostra uma das oficinas de mapeamento que a gente fez, com algumas lideranças na base, no Morro do Preventório, e junto com a gente, via videoconferência, gente do Brasil, de outros lugares, ajudando no mapeamento, gente da Colômbia, e nós próprios da UFRJ estamos lá em Niterói, no local, a gente está dando suporte remoto. Próximo slide, por favor. E aí eu fiquei com essa questão. Qual vai ser, essa provocação de vocês foi muito interessante. Qual vai ser o legado, né? O legado para a gente é essa experiência de trabalho conjunto com as favelas. Porque, por enquanto, esses termos Open Data, Open Science, Transparency, isso está muito fora do vocabulário e muito fora das discussões atuais na crise Covid. Eu acho 3 anos. Ao longo desse processo, eu acho que esse também é outro dos desafios, a gente conseguir equalizar essa comunicação, que é o ponto forte do projeto. E aí a gente está trabalhando com 2 conceitos muito fortes para trabalhar essa relação desproporcional entre ter uma ferramenta e conceitos exterior, em outra língua, em inglês, e como a gente articula isso com a atividade prática. Próximo slide. A gente está trabalhando com o conceito de mapear culturas. A gente trabalha junto nesse projeto com a equipe de um educador popular brasileiro chamado Tião Rocha. E aí, para o Tião Rocha, existe uma definição bem clara de cultura. A cultura são os saberes que têm a ver com a tradição, com os conhecimentos tradicionais históricos de um território. Então, a cultura para eles são os saberes, são os fazeres. É naquele território, o que aquelas pessoas, o que aquele coletivo, o que eles fazem de fato no presente, o que eles fazem para ser feliz, o que eles fazem para sobreviver, para trabalhar, para viver no mundo. Para ele, cultura são saberes, que têm um viés histórico, fazeres, que têm a ver com o presente, e os quereres. O que é que aquela comunidade, qual é a visão de futuro dela, o que ela quer. Então, a gente está construindo coletivamente com as pessoas no preventório, principalmente com as lideranças comunitárias, durante esse processo da pandemia, esse está sendo um grande legado, a construção desse mapeamento. Primeiro, a gente entender qual é a cultura do preventório, quais são os saberes, quereres e fazeres. E como esses quereres, saberes e fazeres se misturam, se articulam com os nossos da universidade. Então, esse está sendo o grande legado que a gente está construindo no momento. E a gente trabalha com isso e tomando conta, bastante cuidado, para a gente não reproduzir ausências. A gente está trabalhando... Opa, volta um slide. A gente está trabalhando também com o conceito de um pensador...
Cuidado, porque eu com o tempo, Fernando, para poder a gente conseguir ir para as discussões. Só chata.
Eu tenho quanto tempo? Fala aí.
Se puder fechar em 2 minutos, é possível?
É possível.
Pronto.
É possível. Faz isso rápido.
Obrigada, desculpa.
Nada, você está na sua missão. O conceito do Ailton Krenak, que é uma liderança indígena importante, que a gente, quando vai fazer algum trabalho, principalmente a gente que está na universidade, na academia, representados por essa figura de um CNPJ, de um corpo branco, masculino, heterossexual, a gente constrói ausências. O conhecimento acadêmico, às vezes, constrói ausências. O que é a ausência? É mapear a diversidade, fechar o diálogo com os territórios que a gente quer trabalhar. Para ele, a gente sempre tem que estar em diálogo, para sempre, em vez de produzir um padrão, um modelo de risco, um mapa, a gente sempre contar mais histórias, produzir vários mapas, vários modelos, escutando todos que estão naquela comunidade. Próximo slide. Então, o legado que eu poderia falar para vocês aqui agora, poderia contar a história para vocês da relação, dos vínculos de afeto. Eu não estou falando de afeto algo romantizado, estou falando do afeto de afetar. Que é, por exemplo, o Henrique, que é um professor universitário, um pós-doutor, 65 anos, trabalhando dialogicamente com Kaique Silva, que é um menino do território, do preventório, de 17 anos, que ele criou, basicamente, ele mapeou umas 2.000 casas no OpenStreetMaps. Mas o vínculo entre eles é para além dessa quantificação do que é o mapeamento, do que é uma produção de dados pela comunidade. O vínculo deles é todo um cuidado que ele e o Henrique têm entre si, do Henrique também trabalhar outros conceitos com ele, porque ele é um menino de 17 anos e está ajudando a gente pra caramba no mapeamento, junto com os outros, com relação que a gente também está criando no território com as escolas. Próximo slide. Então, o legado que a gente tem, que é para além da Open Science, do Open Data, é a metodologia que a gente está criando com eles, os encontros e a confiança que a gente está gerando com eles, que são, se for codificar, em 10 semanas, são mais de 60 encontros que a gente tem com a comunidade, com a universidade, para construir esse projeto. O legado que eu acho que vai continuar a pandemia são as ações de solidariedade, porque, independente da pandemia ou não, esses territórios vão continuar sofrendo as ausências de bens básicos. Bens como comida, água, como sempre tiveram, como tratamento de esgoto e, principalmente agora, na pandemia que surgiu, a questão do acesso à rede de dados, à internet. Então, o legado vai ser continuar com essas ações de solidariedade. Próximo. Pode pular, próximo. Eu acho que o legado que a gente vai tentar construir, agora falando especificamente de Open Data, de Open Science, de transparência, é a gente principalmente do meio acadêmico, usando as redes que a gente tem para a gente conseguir articular e, de fato, para ter dados abertos no preventório, ciência aberta no preventório, a gente precisa construir com eles o que é aprender essas ferramentas, porque não é trivial você trabalhar com OpenStreetMaps de forma dialógica. É uma plataforma de fora, estrangeira, estranha, em outra, com uma liderança comunitária, e garantir para eles a infraestrutura básica, os direitos básicos para a gente, de fato, para que eles se apropriem, aprendam e construam junto com a gente dados abertos, ciência aberta. Então, eu acho que o legado que a gente vai tentar construir com eles e que não é garantido, porque vai depender da gente criar essa infraestrutura, que seja internet de qualidade. Vai ser complicado, vai ser difícil. E é isso. Obrigado, gente.
Obrigada, Fernando. Thank you very much. So I'm going to give my presentation now, so we have a little time for questions. And can you put my slides there, Fernanda? Here we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our work in Geocombate group. But actually, what I'm going to do is a different kind of presentation. We have a poster that anyone that wants to know a little bit more about the work that we're doing there and the projects and analysis that we have done can access this poster. And here, what I'm going to do is show in this context what we have. Can open data, open science, transparency, collaboration be a pandemic legacy? And the first answer to this, facing what we are facing during these more than 2 months, fighting the pandemic, thinking about information, geoscience information, is that this is a must. We can pass the next slide. It must be a pandemic legacy. So next slide. We have lots of things that happened in the world, and knowledge is power. We know that. Since the beginning, where you have the religions leaders and that. But now, this can be no longer in the hands of few people. I think all the presentations that come along in this day already shows it very well. And this knowledge comes from data, that translates to information that becomes knowledge. And these sometimes pass through fake news, into misinformation, conspiracy theories, and so many things that are coming up in the world right now. And I'm saying here in Brazil too, that looks like we are going backwards. But we can't allow this to happen. So next slide. We need this open science. That's how the world is fighting against coronavirus. That's how I believe we can fight together, knowing what's going on in Kenya, in Nairobi and other places in Nigeria, and Rio and all this, so we can work together. The next slide. This is a must then. And open science means, for example, when we produce our papers, and actually we're working in technical notes, we are not right now worried about sending, the papers for formal releases, scientific medicine, but we are thinking also about these articles and working in this in parallel with other contributions. But what we want to do now is helping those that are doing something that is urgent. People from the communities, people from the government or whatever. But this science and all this production that we have, just to say for here, we have a map in the part of the city where you have access to basic, in this map here, or the colorful map, you have access to basic units of health service. And who is far away from this? They could not go walking, because this could mean like a 30 minutes walk when you have asthma, you can't breathe. And other areas in Bahia, so everything is there. But is this open science enough? Is this producing this information and put it there in the website like we are doing enough? Next slide. And this is a personal, I'm not talking in the, I'm sure I am talking in the behalf of most of the people of Geocombate, but since I didn't consult everyone, so this is my personal slide where I need to tell everyone that is hearing here and everyone that is outside Brazil and doesn't know what's going on here, is that these people do not represent us. We do not want to be in a country that we cannot talk and we cannot discuss things, and we don't have the power in the hands of people that are the people. And so most of Brazilians do support democracy, and democracy is based on discussion. Science is based on discussion, which is based on arguments, which is based in data. So if we have the data being manipulated or the data being getting out of the site, there's nothing, it's very hard to work with. And so this is the next step that we're talking about. There's a lot of polemic going on, and I needed to talk about this time period in Brazil, which is very against science sometimes, and we need to face it. Next slide. So we do need to do all this and to do this open science to contest, like doing right now in famous papers, journals, and contest what we have based on data, in open data, where everyone can have access. I don't want to ask for the data so I can work with it in my university, so I can do a paper that goes to the best. I can do that, and other people can do the same, and we can work maybe in different point of views and get different results, and this is going to be the rich part of it, and we can discuss even if it's not the agreement, and go further in science. If I keep the data to myself, this is not going to happen. So next slide. What we need, especially right now, talking about COVID-19 and the last experiences in the last month, thinking about an approach in civil humanitarian help, we have the danger, which is where the cases are, and we have the exposition of the people. That means where the people go through, where they are, how they're moving. So you put this together, you have a potential threat. And we get the data from, if you want to talk about a city and slums and the vulnerability that is within the municipality limits, we need to have this data more detailed. We need to have it by neighborhoods or even through streets or something like this. I know how a trick that is because of privacy things, but we do have ways of treating this and making no problem comparing to privacy. But here in Salvador, for example, we don't have access to this data. We need to, it's publicized in the Twitter, and it's not a file, so the problem. Access to movement and dislocation and isolation data based on cell phone data. That is something that was, oh, we're gonna have this, and the government is making a deal, and never came and got so late. And now we have this information, which is from last month, which is okay, it's better than 2 months ago, but still, is that hard to make it published, to allow people to work with this? Is that, what is more important? So the next data that I was talking about that we face is a problem is vulnerability. Actually, we do have a very good census, and the last census, unfortunately, was 10 years ago, but we are supposed to have 1 year run now, And these years, and we have a lot of restrictions in the budget, and many questions were going to be cutted. So we wanted to reinforce how important this census has been for us, and to find these vulnerabilities where those people are, even if it's 10 years late. And cartography, the territorial cadastre, where we have information about the city, is fundamental, images and all these sources of data. Of course, in the other side, for the potential risk, we have the capacity of facing and resisting, and the resilience of the city that we need to build up. This was a part that we didn't personally, I mean, the group worked right now, but we have and try to support all these. In the right side, we have all these communities and associations that we are trying to support. And we have in the other side, other groups of researchers that are doing great work in the architecture school, Interagir City in Salvador, where they are connecting and trying to make this effort of having who is needing and what they need. And yes, poverty, lack of sanitation is something that is always going to be there. And this is not for now. We need to build these things and make these all happen to help other things to happen later. This is not going to be over. Go ahead. And next slide, yes. So for this data and transparency, we make to have a strategical importance to build up and to really compromise with some projects that we already have here. We have the national infrastructure, spatial data infrastructure in Brazil. We have in Bahia also a spatial data infrastructure project. And we have some projects that we are trying to build up for universities. We think also that all this data that we produce in the university needs to be connected and needs to be open, not only the paper where we write it. So this is fundamental, and we really defend that. And we also trying to do some other parallel work with OpenStreetMap, with the help of people from HOT, having these, starting to map some of these vulnerable areas, thinking about the informal and all the attributes that you have in the community that makes these trips and local trips necessary. And let's say that we are not thinking about restricting. We understand that in those communities there are the fundamental workers of the country. And they cannot stop, because otherwise they're going to die, like Nicera said. And they need to have money to work. They need to have money to eat. So it's very hard to make all these work together and think of everything. How can we protect at the same time, allow them to live in all these restrictions? So intelligence, data, information, see where is more important to tackle, where the government needs to go first, is fundamental. Next. And this needs to be fast, and that's why we need all this data already organized in these structures. And you already have, and you can do, and you can go forward with it. Another thing that has been talked about, and it's very nice to hear that everyone, all the people agree with it, that we find communication is being a huge gap, and we need to be able to connect and talk to mayors, to the media, to community leaders, technicians, researchers, and through all these kind of networks and social networks, because that's where things happen, and it happens really fast. And it comes to this other problem, the communication problem, that we also had action on this, which is the internet. Because the community leaders and people in the ground, they might have cell phones, because it's something that is really everywhere. Maybe the very lower income, of course, doesn't, but you have lots of people that does, but you might not be able to have an internet plan. And then you have all messages coming from WhatsApp and all these fake news that WhatsApp makes it go everywhere. So yeah, we could talk a lot about this, but I'm going to next slide. So what we are doing can you pass to the next? There you go. So what we are trying to do, and by facing these gap, we got in contact with some people, from some professors for the design school here in UFRJ, and they are helping us producing some cards that we did not release yet. We are just showing here some previews of what we want to do for probably next week or this weekend. And it's been a very, very good collaboration. And also I'm bringing a very interesting and different map that a professor from Nestle, Professor Edmund, brought and showed, where you can see the power of cryptography communication. It says so much. These are deaths by coronavirus. So next slide. So this is the power of communication and the power of science, but what's wrong? Because why is people not believing in science, even all these there? And this, I'm adapting speak that Professor Clodovil did in an event here, and just to say that we made things, so complex things, science, reach people in their hands and the cell phones. And once it was kind of close and just a straight lines to calculate from here to there, like this is where, how do we get from our university to the building that we work to the beach? And now we can do so many other questions and put it all together in the computer, trying to make the mind of a person get in the computer and make all these very, very fancy models and algebras and explode sometimes. And then the next step is, next slide. At the end, we come to people, because then you have everything very complex, and you have situation rooms. And you have situation rooms that are physical somewhere, like those here in Bahia that we have, and you have situation rooms like the ones that Fernando said, that I had great pleasure to participate of one day yesterday. And we have lots of possibility and needs to talk and put together. What we need is that to learn how to work together, to better work together, and make more efforts in this direction. We need a leader of a team and coach to say who do what, and make it together. Next slide. So who is going to do what when it needs to be done? So we need this governance and this emergency plan, and we need to think of what are the possibilities to be prepared for the next pandemic, or for the next natural disaster. The natural disaster is already happening right now, and the epidemic that is already happening right now while we have the pandemic. We have all these fights against racism. We have all the fight against dengue, Zika, chikungunya. We have lots of actions to be done with rain, very heavy rain here in Salvador, lots of problems. But if you come and think of health first, we can approach lots of things. We have some very interesting initiatives. Next slide. And to finish, I think everyone, most of you have heard of and watched this talk that Bill Gates did 5 years ago, right after Ebola epidemic, where he thought, in the first slide I thought was very interesting, one of the first slides that he said that what did they learn from Ebola epidemic. And what they saw is that it showed a map showing about surveillance and data. Of course, there's lots of other things that need to be done. I'm talking right now about data and spatial data, and how can we put this together to help whoever is there, talking about so many different and other aspects of the problem. And it looks like we did not learn with Ebola. Are we going to learn with COVID-19? So this is more of a question to finish with, and a must. We must learn. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for the time, and I'm going to catch some questions that people already sent it to us. Okay, Monica said a great work. Really important to collect data on the impact of COVID-19 in our community. And Kibera also is is the largest slums in Africa. Access to livelihood is a very large problem. Julio has a question for Nicera. What are the biggest information gaps you have observed for pandemic combat planning in your community? Nicera, can you answer to Julio?
Thank you for your question. And let me just start with Vivian's question about the institution that cannot give access to information. I'd say, okay, they have the mandate to do that, because it depends with the type of information that you are collecting. Because, for instance, if you're collecting information about gender-based violence, like it is happening, it's very rampant in communities, you cannot give out that data to public. And the cases of and even in health, for instance, you are taking data on HIV positive guys. So that data you cannot just give it out to the community, to the public. It is for you to secure the individual, the data of this individual, you have to keep it just in secret. But however, we've seen institutions who come to communities, take data, and they'll never come back again. And they'll never come back again to tell the community what was the reason of collecting this data. I know that we have different reasons for collecting data. We have students who collect data. We have institutions. But please, I am telling people, and this one is public, and no apologies to make. If you are collecting data in the communities, please come back and tell us, where are you taking this data? Let us own some of this data. It is important. Then to the information gaps in the community, I'll say fake information, whereby we have some communities now because of they cannot access information. As Patricia was saying, at times you might find a situation whereby we have people who cannot access even a phone, leave alone a TV or a radio. They don't have a phone, they have nothing. So when they are trying to source for this information, they'll get fake info. And because of that, they might end up being at risk of getting the coronavirus. Because imagine a scenario whereby, because it's happening, even whereby we are being told coronavirus is not real. Coronavirus is for the rich people. Coronavirus cannot affect a certain community because they are very, very clean. So such kind of fake information, misinformation, it is becoming very rampant. Then another thing I'd say is that, like for instance, we are being buried in the coronavirus pandemic. So people are not thinking about any other thing apart from coronavirus. So we've seen cases of violence, gender-based violence increase, cases of radicalization, of which no one is talking about that. These people are now having a safe haven for radicalization. And believe you me, after this pandemic, we might be having now an explosion. I'm not talking about grenades, of other issues that are affecting communities. Because once there was the issue of cancer, there was the issue of insecurity, but no one talks about that. So that the misinformation that is there is that the government, and I'm not talking about the government of Kenya only, all the governments are now, all the eyes are on coronavirus. We don't think anymore about the infrastructure of our community. We don't think anymore about the people who used to go for the drugs in a clinic and they cannot access those drugs anymore. We don't think of people we don't think of these young people who used to work and they cannot work anymore, and they are not even aware if they're going to get back their work after the coronavirus, of which we don't know even it is going to end or not. So in terms of misinformation, the gaps that are there, I'll say it is, there's a lot of fake information that is going on. And then the government does not define the vulnerability nicely, because you find out that, as I was saying, the government only says that the vulnerability is if you're elderly, if you're orphan, if you are a widow, you are vulnerable. So that's a major gap, because these other peoples, because they want to feed for themselves, they might end up risking themselves and getting coronavirus because they want food on the table. We are just talking about food on the table, not a good dress. We don't need cars, because I usually say the difference between myself and the people that are listening today is that I live in a single room. That room is my table room. That room is my bedroom. That room is my bed. Is just my everything. It's just my everything. And if I want to go to a toilet, I have to pay. If I want to go for a shower, I have to pay. So that is the difference. So such kind of things are affecting us so much as people who are living in the communities. And when the information comes out there that okay, we've given Kibera like a lot of food, so people think we are okay. In some information comes out that communities, we are taking care of communities, we have kazi kwa vijana, people think that we are okay. But remembering that we have so many groups of people that are not being taken care of. We have the single young mothers, upcoming young mothers. We have men that were used to work and they cannot work anymore. So such kind of things are putting us down. And bearing in mind we are in the middle of a pandemic, I don't know where we are heading to be honest. So thank you.
Thank you so much for hearing you. It's just like it's very sad in word, and very important to hear from you. So thank you so much. I'm gonna ask just one question here. I don't know if we have too much time for Fernando. Fernando, since you are from the technological and this side, do you think the institutions that produce the data, or the data that we produce from the communities like this, besides of OpenStreetMap, do you think they are prepared to share their data?
Depende. Por exemplo, um caso bem prático lá do preventório. Foi o seguinte: assim que disparou o Covid, a gente ainda estava num processo. Hoje nós trabalhamos com quase 30 lideranças no campo. Há 10 semanas atrás, nós éramos 3. Então, tinha uma urgência, porque o banco comunitário é um ponto de urgência. As pessoas perguntavam aonde estava doando cesta, aonde tinha... Niterói tem uma particularidade, Niterói teve uma estrutura de política pública muito forte, muito sólida, de benefícios de renda mínima para boa parte da população e dos trabalhadores. Então, a gente começou a trabalhar aonde a prefeitura, o poder público não conseguia ir. E aí surgiu o seguinte problema. Nós estávamos com poucas lideranças no campo para entender qual era a necessidade no território. A gente fez um formulário, a gente fez um Google Form, deixamos a pedido dessas 3 lideranças, elas mandaram para algumas ruas que eles imaginavam que estavam com mais problema na questão de segurança alimentar, a galera passando fome. Só que esse formulário explodiu. E só quem tinha acesso era a liderança e a gente aqui no UFRJ. Nesse formulário que a gente perguntava as quantidade de pessoas na casa, idosos, crianças, algumas comorbidades de saúde, para entender aonde ia priorizar, porque a gente estava também com poucas cestas básicas para doar ainda. Cara, tinha de tudo no formulário. Tinha o cara falando, eu tô aqui, sou mãe solteira, portadora de HIV. Então, informações totalmente sensíveis que a galera expõe porque eles confiam, tem um laço de confiança com aquelas lideranças comunitárias. Por exemplo, aí isso conecta as políticas de privacidade que a gente tem no nosso projeto. Por exemplo, eu não salvar essa informação no servidor da UFRJ, sem a gente fazer um tratamento. Então, a esperança quer que a informação fique, e a gente está negociando. Não, olha só, tem coisas que são sensíveis até por legislação, a gente tem que discutir, rediscutir. Então, quando vem essas demandas deles de baixo para cima, a gente cai nessas ciladas positivas dessa conexão entre dois mundos, um mundo muito formal e um mundo muito informal, um mundo que é baseado em a confiança, no mundo da hierarquia acadêmica e pública, que é gerada por regras de desconfiança. Eles trabalham com outro sistema, eles trabalham com um sistema de confiança total. Então, é algo que a gente vai dialogando para adaptar os nossos com as necessidades deles.
Thank you so much. I was trying here to translate a little bit to Nicera, and I think she could follow a little. And at the end, he's just saying that how important is to save this truth relation that we have with the leaderships and the communities, and understand their needs, like you say. And Nicera, we would be really glad to make it known to anyone that is watching us, the project that you work at, if you have any sorts of contributions that you're receiving, and how can we help your community, because we never know what's going on everywhere, the problem. And same thing for Fernando. I really want to thank you so much. We are out of time already, and we probably, and I hope we can keep in touch and go further in this discussion. Thank you very much. Bye bye.